If we get an early freeze.
¿Y quién lo maneja?
Ellos.
From Chicago to the Illinois to the Mississippi? Is that the idea?
Yep, that's exactly it.
And did cargo go both ways? Or is it
Both ways. Yep, there's two-way traffic. He'll stop pulling, and then we'll just kind of drift, and we'll just head the bank.
Oh, okay.
And we'll just kind of.
Emilia, una foto.
I'll pull back from here every day.
Ahí va.
Last year, right? Oh, yeah. Yep, yeah, I got my bachelor's in history from Western. Western Illinois.
Emilia.
Okay.
Ya se fue.
Yeah, we're kind of, the wind pushes us a little bit, and then we're trying to not rub the bank because it's shallow over there.
Seguro. ¿Te gusta más aquí o abajo? Se ve todo. Se ve todo.
Since everybody's spread out a little bit, I'll just do my talk down here so I make sure that everybody can hear me. We are currently traveling at our top speed of about 1.5 miles an hour. That's about as fast as we're going to go. And we are currently going down the Illinois-Michigan Canal. This canal gets its name because it joins the waterways of the Illinois River, which is about 2 miles behind us, with Lake Michigan, which is about 94 miles ahead of us. Now, this canal doesn't really look like too much now. In fact, most of it's actually a dried up bed for most of the length of the canal. But back in its peak, this was the most important transportation system in the state of Illinois. This was more important than any road or any railroad for a relatively short amount of time. Now, the whole reason why this canal was built was to encourage people to come and live in this area of the country. On the East Coast, the Industrial Revolution was really taking off. There was a lot of factories springing up. But factories run on raw material. You need coal and other minerals to help fuel the fires to keep these industries going. And the interior of the United States has a lot of potential to not only mine coal and sand, but to also grow a lot of food to feed the ever-growing population on the East Coast. But that would require people to live here, and this was not the most hospitable environment in the early 1800s. Now, the Illinois River, which the canal parallels, was useless as a transportation system at this point in time. It was a lot shallower than it is today. So so much so that you could actually walk across the Illinois River in some places and only get your shoes wet. So it would be impossible to send out supplies or get supplies sent to you. So people who lived in this area were very much isolated. You gotta remember, there's no army or fire department or hospital or police or anything like that. So when you live here, you're basically on your own. So if something goes wrong, if your child gets sick, it's up to you to solve the problem. In the 1830s, the Black Hawk War broke out in the Midwest, and some of it would find its way to Illinois. The infamous Indian Creek Massacre would occur in the northeastern corner of the county, where a handful of settlers were brutally killed by a hostile Native American tribe. Now, people in other parts of the state and other parts of the country, they're hearing this news, and of course they're hearing exaggerated and embellished versions of these stories. So this does not exactly scream family-friendly environment to bring the kids. But once the Black Hawk War ended and the Native Americans were driven out of this portion of the country, there rose a new call for people to come to this section of the country and to begin to open up farm fields and industries so they could send their supplies to the East Coast. And the canal became the best way to almost light a beacon for people to realize that this could be a profitable place to start a life. But of course, a canal had to be built. This isn't something that can just appear overnight, and there's nothing natural about this waterway. This is completely hand-dug. And that task usually got put on those who were at the bottom of American society, at least in the north, and those were the thousands of immigrants who were flooding the United States in the early 1800s. Now, the vast majority of those who would work on this canal were from the nation of Ireland. They had escaped rough conditions, and in the 1840s they were escaping the famous potato famine in Rock Ireland in 1848. And they came to the United States hoping to find better opportunities. They did not really find a welcoming environment. They encountered very intense discrimination from locals who were very prejudiced against Irish and other immigrants who were coming to the United States. They often could not climb above the poverty line, and the only jobs they could find were the undesirable heavy construction jobs, such as digging canals. Many of these men had helped build the Erie Canal, probably the most famous canal in the country. It was a 400-mile-long canal which connected the East Coast with the Great Lakes. Now, the Great Lakes are all connected to each other. You can put a boat in any one of the Great Lakes and go to all the other Great Lakes without ever having to go on dry land. Now, with the completion of this canal, it became possible to go from New Orleans on the Mississippi River all the way to New York on the East Coast using nothing but water and never having to take a wagon to go overland. Now, though these men were veterans, that did not make this task any easier. All this land was covered in very tall prairie grass before they began digging it out. Now, this grass could be several feet high and have an extensive root system that can go several feet deep. So all of that has to be ripped up before they can even begin the process of digging. Of course, it wasn't only dirt that was here. There were many trees blocking their path, even very large sandstone formations that you might see out of Starved Rock. They encountered one smack dab in their path, only about a mile ahead of where we are now, that they had to either blast through with gunpowder or chip away at with picks and shovels, and today has earned the very literal nickname of Split Rock, because they literally split this formation right in half in order for the canal to go through. Once they began to dig down in the area of Joliet, which is not too far from Chicago, they encountered a lot of limestone in the canal. Now, limestone would come in handy later, as it is used in the making of cement. That's what they're doing over there. That's all they're coming in here. They're making cement. That's the Illinois Cement Factory.
Gino,
And though it would be very humble later,
That's good.
the Irish, they just had to blast out the land.
los dos. Trajitis tres.
No, aquel es de cosas.
Oh,
Now, these men worked for about 12 to 16 hours a day, roughly about 6 days a week, and earned anywhere from $1 to $2 a day for their efforts. They lived in very poor sanitary conditions, usually living only a couple hundred yards away from the canal itself, in huts that they made themselves disease became a problem from the swampy conditions of the poor drinking water, which would end up killing about 20% of the 5,000 workers. Now, only 1 year into construction, the Panic of 1837, one of the worst economic crises in our history,
Y a ver si acabamos ahí.
and the state of Illinois could no longer afford to pay the workers their wages for digging the canal. To make up for this, after construction was stopped, they began issuing what was called canal script, which was basically paper money, except you could only use it along the canal corridor. If you went anywhere else or sent it back to tell relatives you may still be on the East Coast, it wouldn't be worth the paper it was printed on. Of course, that almost happened anyways. The state gave away so much of the script that having a dollar in your hand was in reality more like having 25 cents. So this is our halfway point here. Now go over there, get some grass. What grass is taking in about 45 minutes?
Está comiendo zacate, ¿no?